Howdy folks. I don't know what kind of signal I'm going to have tonight, but it's kind of late, but I thought I would tie a fly. I'm up late and just trying to wind down. So here's the scenario. Came home from work yesterday, and walking inside, I looked down at the end of the driveway, and someone had dropped a bungee cord, and the bungee cord was cut in half. And the thing that I saw sorry about that. I didn't aim first. Okay. The thing that I saw was this. So, the thing about bungee cords is they're made up of these little rubber strands, and these are basically the same thing you make bug legs out of when you're tying a fly. So I thought, since I do videos with found materials, I thought, why don't I make a bungee bug? So I cut a section of this so I could have a clean start and keep this the way it is. But I cut it, and this is the cross section. So this part, the white part, are these little thin rubber legs. I could see using that for something later down the line. But the thick black part is the rubber legs part, the good rubber legs part, this part. I think these will work well. The other thing that I wanted to do, when I do these kinds of videos, I like to do videos where I'm making the fly completely out of the found materials as much as possible. So the other idea was to make the cover, cut the cover up and use it for dubbing, so that's the body. I will say this thing was laying out in the street, and it's pretty grubby. So I would recommend using a clean bungee cord if you want to do this. Of course, if it's found, you don't really have much choice. But yeah, recommend using a clean bungee cord. And if you have a bungee cord that's a good color, you can get different color dubbing out of it. This fly is going to be black with black legs, and I'm going to just use black thread and make it all black. So let's go ahead and get started. This internet connection is going in and out, so hopefully this is making it out to you guys. And if nothing else, hopefully I can get it saved the way I usually do and put it on YouTube, like I always do. Alright, let's get started. So I've got my black unithread 8/0 loaded up on my bobbin holder. Sorry, let me get ahead of myself. These are eagle claw hooks. I'm using, I think it's the next to smallest size. I also often use the round eagle claw set, which is another good set to choose from if you're tying cheap flies, which is what I do. That's the other set. But I got this set, the red ones, a little while back, and because they have the hooks have a turn down head, which is something I like the look of on the flies. Alright, so when you cut off the covering of the bungee cord, you end up with this core. and it's all stuck together, but you can peel it, kind of like string cheese. Break it apart. So you get these small, oh, those are kind of cool. Put those down there. Kind of like those white legs. Wish I had a nickel for every time I heard that. Okay, I might use these white legs because they're pretty cool looking. And they're ultra buggy. Just gotta pull on them to separate them. There. These things are dirty. Okay, I'll save those to the side to use when I'm ready. Okay, let's get going. So, start with the thread on the hook as always. Oh, dang it. The other reason I stopped, these hooks are bait holders and they have barbs on the top and barbs there. And for the top of the fly, to avoid breaking the string, you want to press those down. And often when you fly fish for trout, you're not allowed to have barbs. So we'll go ahead and press that down as well. Also, if you're fishing for sport and not keeping them, if you're putting them back, it's less traumatic for the fish if you debarb the hook so that the hook is easier to get out. And sometimes debarbing the hook actually makes the hook go in deeper to the fish, so it gets it out of the way. It just depends on the hook, but yeah. All right, so I hold the thread up against the hook at an angle, and I just start wrapping backwards, and I wrap the line on itself and just give the hook a base of thread. A little bit past the bend. And notice I'm going kind of at I guess about a 30-degree angle or 20-degree angle. I don't know what that is. But I do that to avoid hitting the point of the hook when I come around. It just ensures that I don't hit it there and break the string on the hook, because it happens. Those hooks that are really, really sharp. These hooks aren't terribly sharp, but they're pretty sharp. Sharp enough to stick you. But I've had hooks that when you just touch the string to the hook point, it breaks the string. Okay, so we got a pretty good thread base here. I like to come down around the bend of the hook a little bit, because either when I start my body material down here, or even if I started here, if that thread comes down some, it kind of gives that end of the, was it the thorax? Abdomen? The end of the abdomen point that a lot of insects have. Ants, spiders, they come to a point on the rear end. Okay. So now, I think I don't want to build up this body too much. So whatever the dubbing turns out is kind of the way it's going to be. But I think it's just going to be kind of a long, kind of cylindrical shape on the body. So let's see how this dubbing does. Let me get my thread more ready here. Go back one more time. And I will lay it there, and I'm going to put some wax on it. Try to clean this wax up. This wax gets dust on it and it kind of doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. So I'll try to get it on my fingers some, so that when I do my dubbing, it'll help. Just warm it up and get it sticky a little bit. Okay, so I've got some on my fingers, and I've got it now on the thread. What this does is just gives it something to stick to. the way that dubbing works. If you've never seen my videos, if you have, thank you. If you haven't seen the videos or seen the ones where I use dubbing, basically you just take a soft, kind of shredded, torn up material, and you lay it behind the thread and you turn it, and it rolls onto the thread and makes it look like yarn, kind of. Then when you wrap it around the hook, it makes the hook kind of come to life. It kind of gives it a body, a thickness, and a fuzziness. So you can use things like animal fur. So this is pretty gnarly, messy looking stuff. First of all, who knows how old this bungee cord is. So some of this material, this nylon that this is made of, is kind of dry rotted. But you can see as I'm pulling it, this fuzziness is coming off. And that's kind of what you need. Sometimes you'll have longer pieces. Ooh, there's a big chunk that just broke off now. Sometimes you'll have longer pieces that come off. Especially if it's some kind of fur. So I've spread this out. You see I've got a big clump here. So I'm just going to take this and twist it on to my thread. And remember, I've got some of this wax on my fingers as well, so it's helping it bunch up and roll on. And that actually worked out pretty good as a dubbing. Son of a gun. So now I've got this, see, on the thread. Bring my slack out of my thread here. And that is really pretty good looking dubbing, honestly. It doesn't have any flash to it. It's a little bit dirty, but when it goes on, I think it's going to go on well. Let's try to make it go back down a little bit and start here. Now, one thing I'm not tying in here is usually you'll put some kind of a wire so that after you're done wrapping it, you can come over it with the wire and it'll help protect this dubbing. So if you want to imagine that happening, that's fine with me. I'm not going to go back and put wire on it because, well, this bungee didn't have wire on it, so I can't use wire. I guess one thing I could have done is taken a piece of that white strand and put it on there. It would have been elastic instead of wire, but I think it would have done the trick. I'm going to pull this down a little bit, spread it out some, make it last a little bit longer. I'm trying to get it to come all the way to the head. I want to kind of either have it build up at an angle, I either want it to wedge up all the way or be big in the middle, one or the other. So I'll just keep building it here. And if it's a little bit overly buggy, that's fine. I can always brush some of it out. See, I just keep wrapping that, retwisting that dubbing over the thread so that it keeps wrapping forward. This is going to look very similar to a fly I tied recently. It's actually been a pretty popular fly. Oh, that's buggy. Okay, here's my bluegill fly. So that got it wrapped forward and covering the fly pretty well. One thing I can do is go back over a little bit with the thread. That'll kind of work as wire, even though it's not wire. And then I'll come back over, crossing that. Okay, there. Okay, and then this is where it's going to look like the other fly that I tied. I'm just going to take several of these strands. I'm going to make them come to the side though. So all I've done here is just take a clump of this elastic, I laid it over and tied it in the middle, and then I just folded it back on itself and tied it down again. And now I'm just taking the thread here, tight wraps, trying to get all this elastic covered up on this head. We're about to get it right there. Okay, there's our head. Pretty good head, actually. Pretty good head shape. So, use my whip finisher here. The whip finisher takes the thread and then it crosses. See, it holds the thread out and then it lets the thread cross itself. So then when you lay it, the thread that's coming out back to the bobbin against the head of the fly, then this other piece that the hook part is holding twists around that piece that's laying there, and it wraps it down onto the head. And it makes it so that you get some good covering wraps if you can get past those rubbery legs. And then you just release it, let it go where you want it to go, and there's your whip finished head. So I'll take this, cut this off, and then I'm going to take some nail polish. I found my clear. This is just regular clear nail polish. Some people use something called head cement. Get those scissors to clean that up a little bit. There's got some fuzz coming off. Little dull scissors. And then I'm going to take my dubbing brush, if I can find it. Well, I'm going to take my pick. I'm going to pull these legs out of the way here. I'm just going to pick through this a little bit. It's not working. Where's my dubbing brush? I just rearranged my fly tying desk a little bit and then tied a fly and left it messy. And now I don't know where my dubbing brush went. Well, guess it'll just have to be this way. So I'll take this, just clean this little bit up down here. So needless to say, that's a pretty crazy fly, but I think it works. I'll call that my bungee bug. It's made, except for the thread and the hook, it's made out of materials from a bungee cord. From a frayed bungee cord. So there we go. I think I think bluegill and sunfish would destroy this fly. So, and like I said before, with different bungee cords, you get different colors that you could, if you were needing to use it. Obviously, you would get different colored flies from them. And tons of materials. I mean, I just cut a little 2-inch section out of that thing, and all those. I mean, this is maybe 5 strands, and look at all the strands that are here. And this is just from a 2-inch section. All those strands. And then these are the thicker black ones. These, you can make these into hopper legs. If you wanted to make like crickets, these are ideal for this. They're not sparkling, they're not anything special, but I mean, those are, you should get tons of them. You can take these and tie them in a knot. Tie them in a knot and then trim one of these legs off. And then when you tie that onto the fly, you get a hopper leg. I just made that like that. There's nothing. And you get all those with that one bungee cord. And this is only half of the bungee cord. Look at all that. I mean, you just get a ton of materials off of that thing. So if you're a kind of person that likes to tie flies and likes to tie them frugally, get some eagle claw hooks for, I think I got this whole pack for $4 or $5. There's got to be something like 200 hooks in there. And then a bungee cord and an old, a feather or a deer hide or a squirrel tail or something, and you could make some crazy flies and make a lot of them for cheap. So give it a try. It's really fun. It's really a good way to let off some steam. And when you have materials that are this inexpensive, you could sit here and tie for hours and not run out of materials and make a ton of flies. So give it a shot. If you watched, I hope you enjoyed it. I know that this video was kind of going in and out, so I hope that it worked out for you. But here's that bungee bug. Try to tie it.